It's like everyone's obsessed with pregnancy and birth, right? 9 months of attention, and then bam, baby's here, and suddenly it's all about tiny socks and burp cloths.
And no one really prepares you for what comes after the baby arrives.
Mm.
Like, yeah, physically things are different, but the emotional and relationship stuff, it's huge.
That's exactly what we're diving into today, actually.
Well, it did.
You sent over these, well, they're called 50 postpartum journal prompts by LaStallion. So not medical advice or anything, but more like conversation starters.
I like that.
Yeah. So whether someone's about to become a parent or they're already supporting someone postpartum, or honestly, even if they're just curious like me, there's some really interesting insights here about this whole transformation.
I think that's what I like about these prompts. They make you, like, really look inward. And that can be helpful for anyone, not just, new parents. It's a lot of adjustment.
It really is. It's way more than just bouncing back, which, by the way, I hate that phrase.
Oh, tell me about it.
But okay, so the first few prompts are all about the birth itself. Now, we'll get to the bigger picture, but I think revisiting the birth experience is a good place to start. What do you think?
For sure. I mean, it kind of sets the stage for everything that follows, don't you think?
Absolutely. And one prompt asks about, like, what was the most unexpected part of your birth?
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter how prepared you think you are, something always throws you a curveball.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And everyone deals with those curveballs so differently, right? Like, some people find that unexpected strength,
I was just going to say that.
while others need more time to process,
It's so true. Like that prompt, the one that's like, what surprised you most about your birth? It's like, it reminds us birth rarely goes exactly as planned, which for anyone involved, not just the person giving birth, I think that's huge to just acknowledge.
Totally. And speaking of acknowledging things, there's this other prompt about reflecting on fears and anxieties around the birth.
Mm-hmm.
Like those pre-baby jitters, which are totally normal, by the way, but I feel like we don't talk about them enough.
Right. And sometimes just saying those fears out loud, even if they sound kind of crazy, it helps,
Yeah. It's not about getting our day to the feelings, but more about figuring out where they come from. Because sometimes, and I've seen this a lot, those anxieties, if you don't deal with them, they can pop up after the baby's born and even affect how you parent.
Like that prompt, it asks, what were you most afraid of before the birth? And how did those fears, or did they not, like, show up during the actual experience?
It's just acknowledging that those feelings are real. And for some people, they linger even after the baby's here. There's something so powerful about saying them out loud and then thinking about how you got through it.
Yeah, it's like, hey, fear, I see you, but also I've got this tiny human to take care of, so let's do this thing.
Exactly. And you know what I thought was interesting? A lot of these prompts, they're about gratitude, even when things are hard. There's one like, what are you most grateful for about your birth? Finding even small things to appreciate, I think, during that time can be huge for mental well-being.
Totally. It's like finding the good, even when things are messy, can totally change your perspective. Just reading that one made me think about how important gratitude is, and not even just for postpartum.
Oh, absolutely. I think we could all use a little more gratitude, especially during times when things feel uncertain or are changing a lot.
For sure. So we've talked about the actual birth, but that's obviously just the beginning.
Right.
What about this next set of prompts, the ones about those first few weeks and months of new parenthood? Anything stand out?
What struck me is we focus so much on the birth parent's physical recovery, which of course is important, but these prompts really highlight how much is going on emotionally and in the relationship too. It's a huge adjustment.
So true. It's not just about your body healing. It's about, like, who you are and now as a parent, as a partner too.
Yes, exactly. There's this one prompt. It asks, how has your relationship with your partner evolved since having the baby?
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to forget that this transition, it impacts both partners. Communication is more important than ever.
I was so happy to see that one because, right, it's not just about the mom. The other partner's adjusting too.
Exactly. And the whole dynamic of the relationship is shifting. There's just a lot to figure out, especially those first few weeks when, let's be honest, sleep is like a distant memory and hormones are all over the place. And yeah, the sleep deprivation, oof, that can make everything harder. Communicating, making decisions, all of it for both people.
Oh, 100%. Speaking of those sleep-deprived days, I do like how these prompts, they don't shy away from the hard stuff. There's one that's like, what are some emotions you felt that you were not expecting? Because, I mean, those first few weeks especially are intense.
It's not all, gurgling and cute baby smells. It's Real, raw emotions, the whole spectrum.
Totally. And that's why I think journaling can be so helpful, during that time, especially just having that space to process it all, even the stuff you don't want to admit out loud.
It's like you're having a conversation with yourself, but on paper. So you can be totally honest about what you're going through without worrying about saying the right thing or burdening anyone.
Oh, I love that. And it doesn't even have to be like this big formal journaling thing. Just jotting down a few words here and there can help so much when you feel overwhelmed.
100%. Oh, there's this one prompt in this section I thought was really insightful. Have there been times when you felt disconnected from your baby? I think that happens to a lot of parents, but it feels almost taboo to talk about.
Oh, for sure. There's this pressure to present this like perfect picture of bonding, but in reality, it's more complicated than that.
Exactly. And that prompt, it lets you acknowledge that. Bonding takes time. It's not always this immediate thing. And just being able to say, hey, I feel unsure, or even I don't feel super connected right now, without judgment, that's huge.
It makes me think of a friend of mine. She was saying how she didn't have that like instant, overwhelming love that everyone talks about. For her, it was more like taking care of a tiny stranger at first. But then, over time, that bond grew, and now she can't imagine life without her son.
That's such a good example of how these journeys, they're just so personal. And it's important to give space for that. Whatever someone's experiencing, it's valid.
And it's different for everyone, right? Like even just thinking about self-care during that time.
Oh, absolutely. What works for one person might not work for another. That's why I like the one that says, what brings you joy and nourishment during this time? It's about finding what truly fills you up, even when being a new parent is so demanding.
Finding those bright spots, right? Whether it's a hot bath, reading for 10 minutes, whatever.
Exactly. Making time for those things, no matter how small, it's about recharging, remembering what you need. Self-care is not selfish. It's how you keep going.
So true. So we've talked about the emotions, the relationship stuff, but then there's also this whole like logistical side of things to figure out.
Oh, yeah. It's like they hand you this baby and are like, okay, go be an expert.
Mm.
With like zero sleep and a whole lot of uncertainty. Having a good support system during that time, it's everything.
It really is. There's actually a prompt about that asking, who are you leaning on for support right now? And how are they helping you?
I was going to say that one. It just highlights how crucial that support is. And it acknowledges that it can come from so many places, right? Your
Yeah.
partner, family, friends, maybe a postpartum doula, a therapist even.
It's about knowing who those key people are, the ones who can help practically, emotionally, and then actually letting them help.
Because even those little things, like someone bringing you a meal or just listening without judgment, those things are huge when you're feeling overwhelmed.
It really does take a village, right? Even if your village is mostly online these days.
Right.
It really does. It makes you realize you should be building that village, like even before the baby comes.
Absolutely. And it goes back to that self-care thing we were talking about. Asking for help. I mean, that IS self-care. Admitting you don't have to do it all yourself.
It takes a village, right? And not just to like raise the kid, but to support the parents who are doing the raising.
Exactly. And like we keep saying, postpartum, it's a huge time of change.
Mm.
Being kind to yourself, giving yourself grace, that's more important than ever.
Oh, for sure. Especially with social media and everything. It's so easy to compare yourself to these like perfect parent portrayals, but
Yeah.
these next prompts we're going to get into, they're all about looking inward. Personal growth, what you want for the future, that kind of thing.
And that's what's so cool about them. Yeah, there are challenges, but there's also this huge opportunity for you to grow. This experience can really change you.
It's true. There's one here, I wrote it down because it really stuck with me. What are you most proud of yourself for during this postpartum journey? Honestly, I don't think we ask ourselves that enough, especially new parents.
We should celebrate those wins more, even the little ones. Because let's be real, some days just getting out the door with a newborn, that's a victory.
Right. Like, I went to the grocery store, talked to another human, and remembered diapers. I am amazing.
Exactly. And those little things add up. They make you more resilient. They remind you that you can handle whatever comes next.
Which, speaking of, these last few prompts, they're really interesting. It's like, okay, you've gone through that initial crazy newborn stage, so now what? What does the future look like? For you, for your kid?
Yeah, you're shifting your perspective, moving from those intense first few weeks to thinking more long-term.
Totally. This one really got me. What legacy do you hope to leave for your child? I know, deep question when you're sleep deprived and covered in spit up, but it's important.
It really is.
Yeah.
It makes you think about your values, what you believe in, and what you want to pass on to your kids.
Yeah.
What kind of people do you want them to be? What kind of world do you want them to live in?
Wow. That's a good way to put it. It's like we're not just responsible for raising kids, but for helping to create the future we want for all of us, you know?
Exactly. And we can't control everything our kids will face, but we can try to give them the tools to deal with it. Kindness, empathy, knowing how to bounce back from setbacks. And that starts with us showing them how to do that.
That's so true. It's a constant learning curve being a parent for everyone involved.
Sure.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive, and I have to say, these postpartum journal prompts, they really gave me a lot to think about.
Me too. It's a reminder that even though it's tough, this postpartum period, it's also a really special time, full of potential, you know?
Yeah.
Embrace the messy parts, celebrate the little wins. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Find the joy where you can, even when things are chaotic. And remember, you're not alone in this whole parenting thing. It's a wild ride. So to everyone listening, we hope this gave you some things to think about no matter where you are on your own journey. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.